Let's talk a little bit about these 30 years that you were in practice. I understand you were a chiropractor primarily, but then, of course, you sort of branched out from there. Can you give me a picture of that, please?
I had no intention of kind of getting into what I am to now because I was I was like the worst patient you ever could imagine as far as diet. I would literally eat pure junk food all the way up until I was like 28 years old. And I got away with it for so many years, but then it caught up with me. But the only thing green that I ate, I think, was pistachio ice cream and lime green jello. But other than that, I never ate a vegetable, never ate anything healthy. And so I was going along and getting away with it until I started getting in my 20s. And all of a sudden, I was like arthritic in my fingers and my back. I had chronic fatigue syndrome. I was just, I couldn't sleep. I started going downhill. In fact, my wife was like, "You don't look too good. You look kind of gray and almost greenish." And I was going downhill. So, of course, it was a good and bad thing. The good thing was it kind of woke me up to eating healthily and figuring out things because I stumbled on what to do to correct things. But if I never had that experience, I never would have got into health at all. I stumbled on a book called Mastering the Zone. And I didn't even read the whole book. I just read the introduction and it said something about insulin and avoid carbs and eat high quality protein. So the next morning, I had a buffalo burger instead of my cereal, like red meat, which I thought was really bad for you at the time because it causes, cancer, which is totally a lie. So I ate that and it was almost like someone just literally took a helmet off my head and I could actually think clearly. I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. The way I was trying to solve my problems back then, instead of changing my diet, I would just be taking supplements, taking this supplement. I would doing colon cleanses and detoxes. And we'd be driving down the street and I would tell my wife, hey, there's the health house. Let's go in there. And then come back with a whole bunch of vitamins. And it wasn't working because the foundation wasn't there.
So tell me about the ketogenic diet. There's some people that, even medical professionals who say it can become dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Explain to me how this works.
Yeah, in real simple terms, you're basically just eliminating the massive amount of carbs that people eat. And so, because when you reduce carbohydrates, it then forces your body to go after your own fat as fuel. And so for weight loss, it's great. And for other things, it's good too. The average person that's not overweight has literally 100,000 calories of fat on their body. So they have a lot more stored energy for running on fat than they do from the dietary source of calories. So if you don't tap into your own fat, then you're going to be dependent on the next meal. You're not going to be able to go long before you're hungry. So when you start shifting off to the ketogenic diet, which is basically it's the breakdown of fat into ketones as an alternative fuel, then you can go a lot longer because you're running off these calories that are just stored. And that allows you to get rid of your cravings and your hunger and produce a whole bunch of health effects, especially for your brain and your heart, that you never could do if you're not in ketosis. There is a certain condition, but that's only with like advanced diabetes type 1, which you have to inject the person with insulin, that it's if they forget their medication and they don't take insulin and their blood sugars go too high, then the body can develop a different type of ketosis, which is like a dangerous type of ketosis. So that's a completely different thing. But since it has the word ketones in it or ketosis, people mix them together and say all of ketosis is bad, which is not true. Our bodies were designed to not have to eat every hour and a half. So our bodies were designed to be in ketosis. Even when we're born, we're going through the ketosis. So there's going to be some vested interest against that, and they're going to put out all sorts of things about ketosis. Mainly, they'll say something like, well, yes, ketosis does work and it does help you lose weight, but we don't know what's going to happen long term. Well, just a little bit of doubt in people's mind, and then they're discouraged.
Bottom line is anyone can jump on the keto diet and do it, and there's no health risk really. Like this is what you're saying here, right?
The risk is not doing it, especially since most people have what's called insulin resistance. That's a condition where you've eaten carbs for so long, chronically, that your body is now having a, like, it's almost like it's a pre-diabetic situation where you can't use insulin as well. It's not working. And so then you get all sorts of problems like a fatty liver, and you're overweight in your midsection, and you start swelling, and the heart suffers, the brain suffers. So I think the dangers of not doing it are great. I think, I think there's also a dirty keto people go on. They kind of like go to McDonald's and they'll just eat the meat without the bun, and that's fine as a step up. But the way that I teach people to do it is to do it the healthy version. It's okay if someone goes off the ketogenic diet. It's actually sometimes good to remind themselves of what they feel like. Like for me, it took me a long time to change my diet because I love junk food, especially Doritos and chips. And so I had to go back and forth to the point where I'm like, you know what? I don't want to feel bad anymore. I'm just going to keep it consistent. And, you know, rarely do I ever go off just because I like the way I feel without it.
Uh, why is a McDonald's burger with no bun dirty keto? What does that even mean?
That means like you're using the lower quality of calories on the ketogenic diet. For example, um, you know, keto diet is not necessarily high fat. Like people think they can eat more fat and go into ketosis. No, no. The way you get into ketosis is by lowering your carbohydrate. Okay. So now, of course, you have to replace those carbohydrates with something. So that's fat. Now, when people do like seed oils, and like you can go and fry something in like corn oil, and it's still keto because it's low carb, but is it the healthy version? Maybe not. So there's different levels of quality of ingredients. Like you look at the Atkins bars, right? It's just filled with soy protein isolates. Like that's like pretty low quality protein. And yeah, it's keto, but is it healthy? I wouldn't think so.
So, yeah, and you, to your point here about getting the healthy carbohydrates, you actually live on a farm, right? And so
Yeah.
you're growing these, I guess, carbohydrates and non-carbohydrates. So just tell me about that.
I have the fortunate option to live on a farm. I lived in Bethesda for, and actually Alexandria for many years. And after a while, after 30 years, I was like, you know what? We need to kind of move into a location where there's more space. We actually live off the land. I have gardens. I have animals. We eat the meat. So I'm lucky in that way. I can actually have a freezer full of meat from my farm and control that. But you don't necessarily have to live on a farm to be healthy. You could get this high quality protein anywhere. But that's basically where I live, and I have a little studio that I'm in right now. I do my videos, and I do basically one video every single day, and we have like 5,700 videos that I've done. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm up to lately.
How is it that we got to this place where I guess we forgot what good food was?
I released a video today. I interviewed my father, who's 87 years old, and I started interviewing him. I'm like, what did they eat back then? And how can we compare that to now? Did they have food allergies? No. Did they have autism? No. Was there anyone that was overweight? No. Was there any diabetes? No. Like you didn't even have these problems. And so one of the conclusions that I came up with is there has been a new category of food that was invented or created or manufactured by the food industry called the snack foods. So we have the crackers, the chips, the little bars, the snack bars. I mean, back then, your parents would tell you not to ruin your appetite. Don't eat. And if they did have a snack, it was like an apple or something out of the garden. Now we snack not on that. We snack on ultra processed food calories. So we're dealing with highly refined things that are just going to raise our insulin between the meals. So now we have 3 meals, and then we add the snacks. Now we get these spikes all day long, and we're creating a chronic insulin situation, which is literally destroying our health at a very early age. I remember asking my father, I says, what kind of cereal did you have? Oatmeal with milk. That was it. There wasn't these cereals that they have now.
How is it that this actually happened, right? Because it's not just the reality of the junk food, but it's the actual guidance
Yeah.
to some extent too, right?
You remember when tobacco was healthy? I mean, people smoked, and so that went over a period of time. And then there was a shift where smoking was bad. Cigarette manufacturing companies shifted gears, and they bought up some of the junk food industry. And then they started producing more food that was very profitable. If you take, for example, one ingredient, corn. Okay. The type of corn they use in junk food is not sweet corn. They use what's called dent corn or field corn. It's inedible. You can't even eat it. But that's the corn that's in the chips. It's in most of the products. Because of the subsidies, they basically can buy a cubic ton of this corn for $198. Okay. Now think about how many boxes of cornflakes you can make for under 200 bucks. So you have a super cheap um, food that gives you a lot of pleasure at the expense of no nutrition, very little protein. So it's going to keep you eating it. My problem was the Doritos. Like I could just start and I would down the whole bag. I mean, the large bag in one sitting without even thinking twice. So we created this industry, and it created addictions. And 40, 50 years later, here we are, with the problem. It's like, and unfortunately, you as a taxpayer pays for most of the raw material in this junk food unknowingly through the subsidies. And that's something that has to be cleaned up by this new administration.